Welcome to PokeTicker. I got back into collecting Pokemon in 2020, and what started as nostalgia has turned into something more. Over the last few years, collectibles and Pokemon specifically have evolved into something that trades much more like an asset class than a hobby. So I've taken everything I learned from my background in finance, in my MBA, and I've applied it to my collection, which started small and has grown into a real asset class. I use data backed analysis to inform all of the decisions that I make, and that's exactly what I'm going to share with you. No hype, just data. Welcome to PokeTicker. Let's see what the market's telling us. I want to walk through my first video here and kind of show you some of the data that is showing how this is much more than just a hobby now and is trading much more like that asset class I just mentioned. It's extremely important to think about it this way as the hobby continues to grow. And so for the first information that I want to share here is just how large it's gotten. So you can see from this website the net profit trajectory here. Obviously, it's a big hockey stick. A lot of people will use that as proof that it's continued to grow. But the big number here that I want to call out is this 3.54 billion in USD for total revenue. So that's a huge number that the market has grown into. That's not just a hobby type number. That is a finance asset class level number. In addition to that, what you should be aware of is that is just the Pokemon company's revenue. That does not include secondary market. That does not include eBay sales, Whatnot breaks, card show tables, any of that kind of stuff. So really be aware as you think through the hobby now that this is grown into something much more. And people with much more disposable income have gotten into the hobby. Secondly, I want to take you over to PokeGuardian here. Thanks to them for putting this information together. A lot of us obviously know this number if you're in the hobby, but the Pokemon Company has greatly increased the number of cards they're printing. They've printed over 85 billion cards in the history of the company. However, 10 billion of which was just done in the last year. And they've printed as many cards, around 43 billion of which, in the last 5 or so years as they did in the history before that. So in the 30th anniversary here, the first 25 years, essentially, they printed the same amount of cards as they did in the last few. So big number to keep in mind as you think through your collection and kind of what you want to do moving forward. Again, another great website here, PokeBeach, that I'm sure you're all familiar with. Just confirming that 10 billion cards in 2025. In addition here, they're calling out that new card factory or printing factory facility, that the Millennium Print Group here is putting together in conjunction with Pokemon Company. Obviously, that's not up and running yet. It won't be up and running until late 2028. So several more years. This will keep the supply here constrained, keep the prices high on things. I know we don't love to hear that. But from an asset class perspective, that's not a bad thing. And we'll keep, the collections priced at a place that'll make you feel good, right? We didn't get into this for the money, but it's always nice to see something that you love, that you collect, is going up in value. The other thing to kind of keep in mind here is overall, I know this isn't the TCG, but the Pokemon games and the TCG Pocket specifically coming out recently have added more to the hype. This $646 million number here is a large number, especially in the first year. These are digital cards. They're not even physical, but it did bring a lot of younger people and a lot of older people who collected back in the 90s back into the hobby. So just something to keep aware or be aware of as you continue to collect and make your collecting decisions. Next, and also importantly, I know I touched on it on kind of that first screen, but the secondary market has become a driving force in the value of these of the hobby and the Pokemon cards. So Whatnot has processed over 6 billion in 2025, up from 2 billion the prior year. So 3 times as much as they did the prior year already on Whatnot, or I'm sorry, not last year, not already, but that's a huge number. Again, trading much more like an asset versus just a card that people like to have in their collection. Buyers are spending 80 minutes daily watching streams, and there are roughly 15,000 live card shows on any given moment. That is a ton of business out there that's being done that you need to be aware of. Even if you're not somebody who shops on Whatnot, but know there's a lot of product out there, even though it feels like there isn't. The supply is definitely being constrained in certain areas, and this is definitely one of them. So a few other just market maturity indicators, thanks to Cards and Pack here for this is a great article they put together. So Heritage just had a record sale of 5.27 million. That's a large number for an auction house, especially just for Pokemon cards, right? 48 million total PSA graded cards. That's a ton. I think it's about 98 of the top 100 submitted cards to PSA were Pokemon cards. So just keep that in mind. That's not, again, I'm just going to keep going back to it. That's not a hobby type number. That is a asset class type number where people are moving their money into Pokemon cards as alternative investments. And you need to be aware so that you can make the right decisions on when to pick things up, when to sell things, and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, we all know that PSA is semi shut down right now. But just be aware that this is happening right now. So, Pokemon brought in over $12 billion in revenue in 2024. Incredibly, $1.2 billion increase over the previous year. If that wasn't impressive enough, the brand is now worth $103 billion. That's more than Disney. That's more than Marvel. They are by far the largest media franchise. That will not change anytime soon. Again, just speaking to the power of this asset. And then one of the last kind of figures here I want to touch on that just proves the market size and the importance of this as an asset versus just a hobby is the expected growth of the market. So the market's expected to grow from 9.2 billion in 2026 up to 16.9 billion in 2023. That is a large increase in just under 9 years. There's a lot of people out there speculating what I should invest in, what cards I should collect, just from the investment perspective. I will always advocate, even though, this is a data back channel, I will always advocate on you collecting what you love, what you find enjoyable, what you want to have in your collection, and then the value will typically follow that in return, right? So not everything is going to have crazy growth. You're going to miss out on some things, but if you really collect based on what you love, then you'll always feel like you're making, if not money, just enhancing your collection itself. So, and then lastly, just the touch on this briefly here before I wrap up the video, but the value impact analysis here, thanks to Pokemon Price Tracker. This is a few months old, but still is important to note the reprint strategy from the Pokemon Company. I know their new facility won't be up and running for a few more years still. However, it is important to keep this aware or be aware of this because they will periodically reprint, especially any current sets in the current rotations. Some of those early Scarlet and Violet sets are now going out of rotation, but things like Prismatic, Destined Rivals, those are still well within the reprint danger zone, I guess I'll call it. So just be careful when you're collecting in that regard and know that that could have some effect on your collection. So thanks for joining me here. I appreciate you listening to this video. I wanted to be pretty quick. Just overviews over the size that the hobby has gotten, the importance of knowing that it's more of an asset now than just a hobby. Make informed decisions, know all these things are going on. I will continue to bring interesting updates and data to you guys as I go along here in the next weeks and use kind of the skills that I've learned to hopefully make help you make some good decisions as well. So thanks again for joining. Let me know if this is something that you liked. This is the kind of content that you're interested in. I will also be doing a series where I do selections based on what kind of data that's going on in the marketplace. So I'm hoping that's something that you all find interesting as well. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you at the next video.